survey, over 100 CEOs who had recently been through an acquisition or merger were asked which areas of their activities needed the most effort. As you can see, the most frequent response to this question was that information technology requires the most integration effort. According to 58% of those we surveyed, IT was the most time-consuming and needed the most work. This is understandable, as many of the IT issues are extremely complex, and the consequences of any change in IT can have a significant impact. The key is how quickly and effectively IT integration can be achieved, and there has to be a clear understanding of the consequences there may be of not getting it right. The two other areas requiring significant attention, sales, marketing and business development on the one hand, and financial management on the other, both were selected by 49% of the respondents.
Seemed to participate in no chemical reactions. But by understanding the stability of the noble gases, physicists discovered the key to chemical bonding itself. Dmitri Mendeleev added the noble gases to his periodic table in 1902, where he arranged the elements in rows and columns according to their atomic weight. Mendeleev was able to see repeating or periodic patterns in their properties. The noble gases appeared regularly in the periodic table, occurring in every eighth position, at least amongst the lighter elements.
The heyday of the English landscape garden was the 18th century, and it stood for many things: the appreciation of natural beauty, of course, but also the idea of a civilized life, good taste, one's personal philosophy, and one's social status. Gardens also, though it is hard for us to credit, became expressions of their owners' political affiliations. Until the picturesque style emerged as part and parcel of the Romantic movement, gardens had been strictly formal, laid out with mathematical precision following the Italian and French examples. There then came a backlash against this rigid formality, led by, among others, the poet Alexander Pope. Pope and his allies argued for a more natural nature. Lord Burlington was a major figure in the landscape garden movement, and he was famously influenced by his love of the Italian architect, Andrea Palladio, along with the picturesque or romanticized landscapes of Italian classical painting. With these in mind, he scattered his gardens and parks with classical Greek and Roman temples and statues. In other words, he wanted to make the garden look like those paintings.
5. Listen to a discussion in a music history class. The class is studying improvisation.
Every jazz player knows what he or she means by improvisation, and all writers know what they mean by improvisation. The result, of course, is a lot of confusion and disagreement about what improvisation really is. We hear about the different types of improvisation: free improvisation, and controlled improvisation, and collective improvisation. What does it all mean? Yes, Mary?
My dictionary says improvise means to compose or recite without preparation.
That's true, but it tells us only part of the story. As we know, musicians learn how to play their instruments before they can improvise, so they do have some preparation. Yes, Arthur?
Maybe a better definition is composing and performing at the same time.
That tells us another part of the story. Let's try to understand it more by looking at history.
Now let's talk video. Video and audio as a tool for mobile. And here's the thing. It also works beautifully for social media and web too. You kill 3 birds with 1 stone. Do you know why TV does so well and films do so well? It's a really easy answer. We humans react best to seeing pictures of other humans talking back to us and playing all these stories and whatnot. Yet you'll find that most of the web is text. Yet when I have a 4-minute video, it does better, or when I have a slideshow that has an audio track to it, they do so much better than all my other content because we need that. This is a flat screen. We need to liven it up somehow. This is a small screen. It's not easy to read lengthy text, but if I create a lengthy article and then I create a 3-minute video or a set of 3-minute videos about it, then I'm now just repurposed and I have something to use. I have differentiated from all my competitors. And I use a fancy QR code to link to these. Oh my God, we're innovating at the speed of, okay.
Good afternoon, Miss Davis. I was told by James that you wanted to see me in your office.
Oh, I did. Thank you for coming, Jean. Have a seat. How are you? Is everything going fine?
Yes, pretty much. What about you, Miss Davis? I haven't seen you for a while.
Yes, I was away for a while. Actually, I went to Arizona and met your mother there. Didn't she tell you about it?
No, she didn't, but that's great. How is she?
She is fine. To me, she is still as exuberant as she was 20 years ago. You will never know how great a teacher your mother was. Anyway, how was your semester?
It was fun. The teachers were nice, especially Ms. McKenna. I loved her class. Strange, I never liked math and struggled so much until I met Miss McKenna.
That's great. How was she so wonderful?
She spoke softly and explained thoroughly. She answered all of the questions earnestly. I wish all my teachers were like Miss McKenna.
Many of her students made that comment in the past, too.
Who could have guessed that I could get an A in math?
Why not? You're smart. You can get an A in any subject you want as long as you try.
I believe so. I should have tried harder instead of giving up and neglecting the hard subjects.
It seems to me that architecture is pretty much something that causes us both pleasure and trouble. I live in the part of Western London where I think many of the streets are really ugly, and this distresses me every time when I walk to a supermarket or walk to the tube. I do not understand why they built those buildings without architecture. A bad building has a serious impact on the people around it, which could be hundreds of years. It lasted so long, and if you write a bad book or a bad play, I will be shocked when it was shown. Suppose the book arose a little bit from the frustration, and then I realize if you talk about architecture, you will say why building are not more beautiful. Then you will say I can use such work as beauty, which is a really arrogant word. And no one knows what beautiful is. It's all in the eye of the beholder. I couldn't help but think about that actually. Well, you know that we all attempt to agree that Rome is nice than Milky Kings, and San Francisco has the edge of Frankfurt, so we can make that sort of generalization. Surely they are something we can say about why a building works or why it doesn't. So the books really attempt to suggest why architecture works when it does and what might go wrong when it doesn't work.
For years, TV advertisements and print advertisements dominated the advertising industry. Yes, TV commercials and newspaper and magazine ads were expensive. But for most advertisers, the money they spent was worth it. People were watching television and reading newspapers and magazines. But times are changing. Television is still the biggest segment for advertisers, but that won't last for much longer. Instead, the internet will overtake both TV and print marketing very soon. There are several reasons for this. First is the internet's growing popularity. Today, the number of people who surf the internet is enormous. In the 1980s, few people owned personal computers. Nowadays, most households have at least one PC. And more people are using the World Wide Web every year. People are also getting their news from the internet. That's making print newspapers and magazines less popular. People are even watching TV programs on the internet. So, as you can see, there's a growing audience available to internet advertisers. Another important reason is cost. Making and airing a television commercial can cost a huge amount of money. For local TV, it might be thousands of dollars, but for national TV, it can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. In some cases, advertisers spend millions of dollars to run 30-second commercials on highly rated TV shows or sports broadcasts. But it's much less expensive to advertise on the internet. Internet advertisements are typically cheap to make. Many times, they merely provide a link to a company's website, and they don't cost that much either. Some internet advertisements cost a few $100s or even less to place on another website. The most expensive ads rarely require more than several $1,000s. Finally, companies can advertise to specific groups on the internet. All sorts of people watch TV or read newspapers and magazines. So an advertisement for baby products might not appeal to most of the audience or readers. However, a company advertising baby products on the internet can buy ad space on websites that parents with babies often visit. This lets the advertiser get more value from its money.
Hiroshi Ishiguro, a robot engineer from Osaka University, makes Geminoids, extremely realistic human robots. It's important that they look exactly like real people for Ishiguro to carry out his research. He's interested in understanding philosophical questions such as what is identity and what might happen if a person and their robot double were able to be in two places at the same time. His Geminoid robots have rubber skin and their heads are controlled by motors. These move the head, blink, twitch, shrug the shoulders, and make the robot appear to be breathing during conversations. As well as this, there are motors which are connected to a computer, microphone, and camera. These scan the controller's voice and face movements, then send messages back to the robot, which copies them. The robot's body and skin stop at his chest, though, and he has no robotic legs, so you won't see him.
In the 19th century, there were several periods when large numbers of people moved from one place to another around the world. In many cases, people moved to another continent. These mass migrations were on a much larger scale than any previous migrations in history. One major movement was from Europe to the Americas, Australia, and Africa. This migration of Europeans involved around 60 million people over 100 years. Another mass migration was from Russia to Siberia and Central Asia. Another was from China, India, and Japan to Southeast Asia. These large movements of people were made possible by the new, cheap, and fast means of The complex process inside a leaf takes energy from the sun and uses it to convert water and carbon dioxide into sugars. During this process, photosynthesis, plants convert light energy into chemical energy. All leaves carry out photosynthesis in basically the same way. First, the pores on the leaf's outer skin open up and take in molecules of carbon dioxide. Water absorbed by the roots is transported upward through the plant, and it enters the leaf through its stem. Carbon dioxide and water, these are the raw materials for photosynthesis. Once carbon dioxide and water are present, photosynthesis can
And one particular crop, almond in the US and now in Australia, is transforming the world of beekeeping and of bees. What has happened is that something serendipitous came along, that people found out, that doctors found out that almonds are good for you, a confection, but it's good for you. The almond board got a very aggressive promotion going on for almonds. They actually, I just heard recently, send out sales reps to cardiologists at hospitals to promote the heart benefits of almonds. In a very good promotion of almonds, and it's legitimate promotion because they are a healthy food. It is about 100 years since that great Canadian-born physician Sir William Osler, Regius Professor of Medicine in Oxford, complained about the increasing influence of the pharmaceutical industry on the medical profession. He would be turning in his grave at the way the industry now dominates doctors' prescribing habits. It does this not only by direct and indirect pressure on the doctors themselves, but also by encouraging the public to ask for scripts.
Well, the simple explanation might be that yesterday's sudden drop in share prices pretty much across the board has created what market analysts like to call a buying opportunity. It tends to bring out investors to pick through the ruins, looking for bargains. Decision by investors that sellers got a little carried away with things, so the buyers have lifted all the major indexes today. The Dow, the Nasdaq, the S&P 500 were all up around 0.5% in early trading today, and that wasn't a big surprise. The sell-off continued somewhat. Overseas European markets remain fairly weak, along with many of the Asian markets. But you'll remember that all this started with a big plunge of around 9% on the stock market in Shanghai. Well, Chinese rebounded by around 4%.
Well, I'm absolutely delighted first of all to have been appointed to this professorship. The role is going to be about public engagement in science. It is about marketing science accessible to as wide an audience as possible. It's about making it easier for our academics here at the University of Birmingham to talk about their research to the general public, and it's not just about a one-way flow of information, it very much is about dialogue.
Oh, it's very spooky. First of all, probability by itself is spooky. Let me show you how probability enters the system. You walk past a store window, and you see an image of yourself in the store window. You're straightened apart. You're not so bad, you know, for a man of my age. The guy in the store window who's fooling around with mannequins, he sees you, and you see yourself. What does that mean? A stream of photons from sunlight leaves your face, heads for the store window. Let's consider one of them. It has a choice. It can go right through so that the guy behind the window can see you, or it could be reflected from the store window. Some fraction of them are reflected, some of them go through. What determines that? What determines the future of that photon? And countless such examples teach us that it's random, that it's a throw of the dice. And that's where Einstein made his famous statement, God plays dice with the universe. At every instant of that single object, that quantum object, we have probability. We do not have certainty.
No, that's an important aspect. As you alluded to earlier, we've previously done work which has proven that in some situations, even people whose blood pressure is not high can benefit from blood pressure lowering therapy. So in this study, the main reason that we included patients was because of diabetes. We didn't care what their blood pressure was, whether it was high or low. And our objective was to see whether or not lowering average or below average blood pressure in diabetics was beneficial. And the results suggested that irrespective of whether your blood pressure was high or low, if you had diabetes, you benefited.
Although the original American Indian cultures were highly diverse, they were similar in many of their traditions. Religious beliefs and rituals permeated every aspect of Indian life. Southwest tribes such as the Hopi and the Apaches had a rich and elaborate year-round sequence of ceremonies including songs, dances, and poetry. The Hopi performed dances to bring rain. The Apaches engaged in special dances and ceremonies to gain support of the spirits before undertaking raids or going into war. The Plains tribes often sought contact with the spirits by going on a vision quest. Although the original
The lecture will focus on the challenge of urban development. Most homebuyers receive a loan from the bank.
Social media has grown enormously in recent years.
And one it is about
Well,
Well,